picking up where we left off just a couple of days ago when we're having our roving reporter in Ramsey. That's Andy Corrie from the Co-op. But today you are talking on behalf of, I think, all the retailers, aren't you, in the food sort of side of things, Andy? It's now following the suit, basically, of the UK. You're saying masks must be worn?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, this situation is changing as we go along, and I represent all of the food retailers, all of the major food retailers, and through my position in the Chamber of Commerce as the retail sector lead, we're obviously in constant discussion on this. The changing situation is that we are all collectively moving to a policy where, rather than strongly advising customers to wear masks where in the stores, we are all effectively now saying that customers must wear masks when in stores, where it's all possible. And we appreciate there are people with certain medical reasons why not, and different retailers have differing policies on how to manage that situation. But ultimately what we're saying is that we, for the safety of colleagues and customers, we're strengthening that message.
Obviously, you'll have people on the doors, will you, to advise people? Can you mandate it? I mean, will you turn people away unless they've got a good excuse?
So, like I said, all retailers are going to have slightly different policies around enforcement on this. So I think most of the busier retailers will have colleagues on the door that will be there to generally remind people. And when we say masks, we mean face coverings. So a scarf or a snood or something like that, or a visor is perfectly acceptable as well. Some of the retailers, it's fair to say, are saying that unless there's a medical exemption, they will refuse entry. My company, the Co-op, we're not currently going to do that. We'll leave that to the customer because we don't want our staff to be put in a confrontational situation. But we would say that the message is strengthening, and we would advise that if there are people who are opposed to the idea of wearing a mask or a face covering, then we would ask those people to find alternative ways to get their shopping, either get somebody to do the shopping for them and use home delivery, click and collect, or choose elsewhere to do the shopping, because the public generally want their safety to be protected on this matter, and masks and face coverings are one of the lines of defence in stopping the spread of the virus.
Is there an official sort of letter that people bring along to say, look, I suffer from this or that, and I therefore have dispensation, or is it just taken on trust?
Yeah, there is nothing official currently. I mean, there's various ways that a customer may evidence it. Certainly, if I speak for the Co-op, and I know some of the other retailers, that if a customer were to verbally declare that they had a medical exemption, far be it from us to challenge that further. So we are still looking for a great deal of public goodwill on this matter, it has to be said. But I mean, what I will say also is that I've been visiting my stores all week, and the compliance to face covering wearing is amazing. It's really, really strong. So there isn't really a big problem with this. I was in Ramsey yesterday, and I counted well over 100 customers, and not a single one of them was not wearing a face covering. So this isn't a measure to tackle what we perceive as a big problem. This is just something that we're putting in place to really hammer home that message about the importance of wearing face coverings to stop the spread.
And the one-way systems, I see most places have got them. I've got a note from someone saying one company maybe hasn't got it in place yet, but overall people need to observe that as well, because I've been in stores where people have just been wandering around willy-nilly, not following those arrows.
Yeah, that's the key thing. Different. Every shop has different shapes and sizes, so what works in one store might not work in another. If I look at maybe a very, very small convenience store, the only system that really makes sense is a one-way system in those stores, because you can't pass within a safe distance of other customers. But other bigger stores with wider aisles could potentially have a system that didn't require one-way. At the end of the day, what we're asking the customers to do is comply with whatever systems the food retailers have put in place to protect their safety, because those systems have been thought through, they have been put through with good consideration, and above all, maintain good hygiene and maintain good social distancing.
Now, you don't want more than one person unless they've got a small child with them as well. Is that, again, that's following the UK sort of system, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that it's following the UK. It's more the fact that we want to minimise the number of people who are going out. We want to minimise the number of people that are in our stores. We want to keep the queues moving as quickly as possible. So it's another thing that different retailers have got slightly different stances on how they enforce it. Some are asking that where possible, customers shop alone. Some are being a little bit more stringent on that. Again, it's up to individual retailers how they want to approach that, and everyone's got a slightly different approach on it. Certainly, there are situations where people have got childcare, people are shopping with somebody they care for, etc., who they can't leave on their own. There's different scenarios that would require people to not fly solo on their shopping trip. What we're trying to say is, if it is at all avoidable, please do shop alone and minimise the number of shopping trips.
Okay, well, I've got you here. Let's talk about school meal vouchers. Is that working?
It's a good question. The government have very kindly put in place the voucher system to allow people who are on free school meals to continue to get support for those meals while the school's on in session. We quickly identified at the co-op that these vouchers had only been issued as ShopRite vouchers. And on that front, ShopRite, fantastic job they've done, and they're to be commended for joining forces on this scheme. Very, very public spirited of them, and excellent of them to work with the government on this. However, I'd identified that this wasn't really in keeping with the government's instruction that people should stay close to home and not travel unduly. I was hearing a lot of people were saying that they'd maybe have to get taxi journeys to go to their nearest ShopRite store. They would have to use public transport to get to their nearest store, etc., etc., and that they would literally have to go past another shop in order to get to ShopRite. So I very quickly decided that we would accept those vouchers as a method of payment in all of the co-op stores on the Isle of Man to give customers an alternative. In an ideal world, there should have been a scheme put in place which allowed customers to choose where to do their shopping, and it should have involved all retailers. But certainly for my part, I wanted to make it easier for people to choose to shop in an alternative location that was perhaps closer to home and didn't cause them to have to risk using public transport or make unnecessary journeys, in keeping with the government's strategy on that.
Finally, the domestic abuse initiative. Can you tell us about that? Is that up and running again?
It is. I mean, that's another thing that we decided to, because we've got a situation where everybody's locked down, people are at home. Obviously, the issue of domestic violence never goes away, but in a lockdown scenario, it could become an even bigger problem. Sometimes the only chance people get to leave the home would be to go on a necessary shopping trip. So ultimately, it's just a very simple measure that are provided to say that if somebody does need to reach out, they should feel free. We call it Project Sanctuary. They should feel to reach out. Everybody needs a place of sanctuary in times of hardship, and they should feel free to reach out. We'll give them a cuppa. We'll be non-judgmental, not ask any questions, and we'll put them in touch with any authorities they would like to be in touch with. Or if they just wanted a respite for 5 or 10 minutes and a cuppa, that's fine. Completely non-judgmental. It's just that offer of assistance for anyone who might be in difficulty on that measure.
So there's no key word to say or anything like that. You know, I need help, or just simply talk to any.
No. I mean, just literally discreetly reach out to a colleague, and sort of. I mean, if they would say the phrase that they're looking for a bit of sanctuary, then the colleagues would be aware that ties in. But there's no secret code words or anything like that necessary. It's just very, very informal, and just literally we're just signposting that we're a friendly retailer. And look, I mean, I must make it clear, we're not. This isn't something the Co-op is alone in. Other retailers have already worked with the Isle of Man Police on similar schemes in the past. I know Tesco operates something similar. I believe Boots would operate something similar as well. So there are other options, and I dare say that anyone who reached out in any circumstance, food retailers in general are a friendly bunch, and anyone who reached out in any circumstance would be given a kindly ear and a supporting shoulder to lean on.
Okay, before I let you go, food supplies, you're obviously keeping your across that. How are we doing? Are all the supplies arriving as and when they should be?
Yeah, there's plenty of stock. I mean, there's probably a couple of messages around people's shopping habits. So there is plenty to go around. There's times where the stores are very busy, and there's times where there's no queues. Typically, in the late evening, stores don't have any queues. So what we'd all as food retailers ask customers is to shop savvy, basically. And if you can, particularly people who are locked down at home, if you can choose your shopping time, try and choose that time to a period where there's no queues, etc., so we can spread people's shopping out and nobody has to queue. And look after the elderly and vulnerable people. Please respect the shopping hours that we've put in place for those guys as retailers. And if there is somebody in the queue with you, then usher them to the front and let them in. The way I like in this situation is that we've got a storm, we've got a rainbow, and we've got a pot of gold at the end of it. The storm is the COVID pandemic. The rainbow, or rainbow bridge, as it were, is the lockdown and the various measures that are in place to get us through this. And the pot of gold at the end is to be able to declare the island virus free again and all go back to the lives that we should and deserve to be living. So let's all make sure that we do our part to help achieve that.
And has Brexit affected you in any way? Are the lettuce getting through?
Are the lettuce getting through?
Well, that was the big scare stories that they could come up with. I think that was about it, wasn't it? At one stage, fresh products from
the lettuce
Europe
are getting through, Paul. So the prawn cocktails of the Isle of Man are safe for the time being. I'm not so sure about Black Forest gattos. They're maybe left back in the 1970s, but the lettuce are definitely getting through.